Hello, I'm Exodia, and today we're doing part 2 in our Roblox scripting advanced tutorial series in Roblox Studio. Today we will be talking about local scripts and tools. Uh, just to continue off of the last video where we talked about filtering enabled in the server and client relationship. Local scripts really fit in with that relationship, as what a local script is, rather than having a normal script that we put in server script service, this runs on the client side of things, always, no matter what you do. Local scripts can be made and they do things on the client specifically. So if we were to click this plus in the workspace and then type in local, we'll find it come up right here. And if we hover over it, it'll give us a little description saying that, yep, it only runs on clients, not servers. So everything is client specific. All the other players in the game will not be affected by what happens on these scripts. And they can only run code when parented under these 5 things: a player's backpack, the character model of the player's player GUI, the player's player scripts, and replicated first service. So what that would look like is it can only be used here in replicated first, here the starter pack, which would put it inside the player's backpack, here in starter GUI. This will be more UI stuff, so if you want to script a button for, say, here this will be used more for tools, which we'll get into that. Replicated first, I do not have as much experience with, but eventually we will have a video covering this and I can actually explain it more in detail when I learn about it, if you guys would like it. It's not really used as much inside of scripting for your normal game making things, but we can always make a tutorial on it. And then here's your player scripts, which you can make script inside of. And then the player character, you can put scripts inside of that. Usually you could do that via like script. You can make the script inside of the character, or if the tool's inside the player's character, then it'll run in that sense. But yeah, so this is what a local script looks like. It's very similar to a server script in the sense that when you open it for the first time, it says print hello world. So we are gonna spawn a part and give that part the player, and give that part's name the player's part of the client that it's spawned on. So we'll call this spawn part to stay organized. And so one nice thing about local scripts is that you can actually get the player as a variable. As we know, we can make a variable by writing local, and then our variable name. And of course we can call it whatever we want. And then we can set this equal to game.players.localPlayer. Another way we can do this would be using the getService method to get the player service, and then we can get the local player from there. Players equals game colon get service. This is how you'd write get service. And then you get these open close parentheses. You'd put open close quotation marks and then write players. This would be the service for players seen here in the Explorer tab. You'd be getting this in game, so you can look at all the players, and then you could write players dot local player. This would get the player normally just fine. However, usually you'll always see the variable local player equals game.players.localPlayer, as this will never have any issues with your character loading in, as your player is one of the first things that gets loaded in Studio. In your game, this is usually never an issue. So yeah, we'll need that. Also, a fun thing is that you cannot get the player on a server script. Yes, it'll autofill if you were to write local player. Yes, this will autofill, but since this script runs on the server side of things, it doesn't know which player specifically you're talking about. It doesn't know what the local player is. This script doesn't recognize what a local player is because it usually runs on the player service to know how many players are in the game rather than specific players. So normally you'd probably have to do something like a for loop for I player in pairs game colon get service players colon get players. This would be a loop you could do to run through. Here we are getting the player service, and then we are getting a table of all the players here. We're setting all the players as a table list. And then we're looping through each one with this for loop. So for I, this would be the index number, or basically like the first player in the list, the second player in the list, etc. Player would be the name of the object we are looking at on each run through of the loop. So the first object we'd call player, and if we want to do like player.name equals hot dog, just for something like simple, this would change every player's name to hot dog because we're looping through for each player. And maybe if we wanted to do if player.name equals, we'll do my Roblox character's name, then player dot name equals Jared or something. This would be how you do stuff with players on the server side of things. However, it's a lot simpler on the client side of things because you can get the player as a variable. So that's what we will do in making our part. We will make a new part, so local, and then variable name, local new part is what I will call it, equals. And remember, you can always call variables whatever you want. It does not matter, so long as it holds an object and you can remember it, then the name should work just fine. So we'll write instance.new. Now whenever we want to make a new object inside of Roblox Studio, whether that be a part, or, for example, a billboard GUI stuff, or anything, any object inside of Roblox Studio, instance.new, what this does is it's a method that allows you to create that new object. So writing this part, if we press enter to autofill, it'll automatically throw some open and close quotations around it. This would be how we make a brand new part. We could set new part.name equal to player.name. What this is doing is name is a property of both the player and the part. So we're changing the part name to the name of the player, which is in this case the local player of the client. And then we're going to set new parts parent to the workspace. So basically, the part will become a child of workspace, aka it'll be inside the workspace. So now what we can do to test this script is we can go up to this tab called test, and then we can find the thing in clients and servers called start. If we look here, we want to click on this drop down, make a local server, and then click on this drop down and select 2 players, and then we can click start. And then what this does is it'll create a local server on top of inside of your computer, and then it'll add the players once the server is created. So we have our 2 players, and then their parts were made, and we can open up the Explorer tab on each client, and then check inside the workspace, and we'll see the part, only one part was created. Now, see, the truth about it is that these are 2 separate parts inside. They're just each made on the specific client. You can move this part around and stuff, and the changes won't be visibly seen on both clients. As you can see, I'm moving around this part, but it looks like I'm just walking around normally on the player 1 client. So yeah, these parts are technically 2 separate objects that cannot be controlled by either client. So yeah, that's basically the big intro to local scripts. Now, where this comes in is when we want to work with something like a tool. If we want to make a tool, we just click on the plus sign when we hover over the workspace, and select this tool. And then we can call this whatever we want. Say we want to make a sword, but in this case, I'll just keep the name as tool. You'd have to put a part inside of here to make the tool work, and then call it handle. And then what I suggest, so this will typically be the part that you hold it on, and if you want to edit the handle of that part, there is a super good plugin, Clone Trooper 1019's Tool Grip Editor. I will have this linked for you guys if you want to download it. What it allows you to do is you can click on a tool, and then you can edit the tool grip, and this basically allows you to edit how the character holds it in game. So you can make him maybe hold it at an offset angle if we wanted to, however we want. This will be how the tool gets held in game. And then when we're done, we can just exit out of the plugin. And so this is where we can combine our ideas. So we can call this tool script underscore client, just so we know that it's the client script for the tool. And then we'll be combining the remote events, because this is one spot that remote events shine in. So if we make a script here and call it tool script server underscore server, and then we click on the plus and replicated storage and make a remote event, we can call this tool event, and then on our local script we can get the replicated storage as a variable using get service. This game colon get service replicated storage like so. Remember, game colon get service, and then you can get any service inside of Roblox Studio. Typically you'll get the services you see inside of the Explorer tab. Maybe you will get other stuff like user input service, which will allow you to customize keybinds for certain actions, which we'll get into later. So for now we'll just get replicated storage and then get the event. How I usually get the event is I'll make a variable tool event, and then I'll get replicated storage, and then if I have a folder, I'll get .folder name. It won't autofill, but that's fine. And then when I want to get the event, I'll do the built-in method colon wait for child, and then we do the event name tool event inside of open and close quotation marks. Now basically what colon wait for child does is it will yield the script until that event is loaded into the game, so that there are no issues, like maybe when you need the event to work but it's not loaded in, so an error will occur in the script. Colon wait for child will make sure that the script is waiting for that to be created inside the game so that it's ready to go. And then we can get the variable for the tool. We can do script.parent. What script.parent does is script obviously gets the current script that we're using, and then .parent will get the object that it's parented to. In this case, our tool is the parent of our script, so writing script.parent would get the tool. And then we can write tool.activated connect function. Whenever you want to use one of these methods for, like, say you're using the event tool.activated, and what activated will do is every time you make a left click with the tool out, it'll trigger activated, similar to how if you were to use .touch on a part, it'll trigger every time you touch a part, or every time you click a button on a screen GUI. There is there's an event for that. But yeah, then we write connect and function, and then what we can do here is we do tool event fire server. Now, if you remember back to when we covered remote events, whenever you want to fire the server with an event so we can perform an action, we do the event fire server. So this will tell the server, hey, we've got some data coming through. And inside the parameters, we can maybe do the player.name or something relevant to our game if we need to be accessed on the server. Say we have a reward, we're making a simulator game, and we have a reward variable for 5, and every time we swing our tool, we want to get 5 currency, then we'll have reward as our parameters, and then we go back over to our server script, and then we can copy and paste the replicated storage and tool events parts, and then we can do tool event dot on server event connect function. What this does is on server event is something that will trigger every time the remote event that we have here is fired. So in this case, every time we click here, it'll fire the event. The server will be like, hey, I'm detecting something coming in from the client, and then it'll then the function will trigger, and then we can write our code. So, and also our parameters. By default, the player will always be the first parameter because we know the player that is sending the event from the client. And then afterwards, the the parameters you have go in order of how you sent them on the client. And remember, on both sides, you can call it whatever you want. So you can call it, well, so long as the variable lines in here, we have the reward, and when we get out on the server, we can call this whatever we want. We just have to remember that this first parameter after the player is the first thing we sent in the client, which would be the reward. So then, in this case, we'll just print reward. If we test this, also if you have a part or if you have a tool, you could just walk over it and it'll go straight into your backpack. And also whenever you make a tool handle, you want to make sure that this anchored value is set to false. I think I accidentally ticked it to true, but if that'll happen, your player will basically be anchored in place and they can't move because the part is anchored. But now that we have it unanchored, we can move around with it. And if we click, we see that 5 is getting printed on the server because yeah, we have it linked up with a remote event to trigger on the server whenever we click on our client to cause stuff to happen. So yeah, this is basically an introduction to local scripts and using tools for certain things. Of course, there's many different things you can make with tools, but this is demonstrating how you can use a local script to communicate with the client to make a tool work, and also talking about local scripts and how they only work on the client. So yeah, that's it for the tutorial. Once again, I have a Discord server now. I will have that linked below. So yeah, see ya.